Hey guys, Tyler Pensick with Real Life School and another real estate mentor, Antonio Guerrero. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you guys listen to your podcast. But for today, we're going to be talking about the types of real estate and the pros and cons of each, because I think that there's a misconception out there. People trying to get into the business, they think that real estate is just this easy topic, but there is so many different types, profiles, pros and cons to each. And today we are going to go over just a baseline of apartments, condos, townhomes, single family homes, ranch style homes, and we'll just briefly talk about commercial and multifamily. So the reason why we're doing this is because people don't talk about it. You know what I mean? They have just little slivers and not really the full aspect. Hopefully in this podcast, we can kind of dive into it a little bit deeper. And also, by the way, both of our profiles are online at reallifeschool.com. You can book with us one-on-one, 30-minute call and dive into your own personal scenario, which there's no better way to learn other than applying what is, certain to you. So apartments, dude.
Apartments. Apartments are something that should be avoided at all costs. Unless you're buying the apartment complex.
There we go.
Apartments, and by apartments I mean rent.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, rent, you're kind of...
Dude, you're never getting ahead.
No.
Dude, I got this.
Treading water.
Yeah. So you're just getting by and you're never getting ahead. That's what a renter is. You're
Right.
just getting by, never getting ahead. And at the end of your lease, you give them back the keys. Thanks for letting me park my car here, do laundry, and sleep. That's great. And we understand it's a stepping stone to moving into that first purchase. Like that's the cycle of real estate, right?
Right. If you have to rent, you want to keep it as cheap as possible.
Yes.
I mean, split an apartment with somebody if you
Yes.
have to. And save that nest egg so you can buy something.
Yeah.
Have a tangible vested interest in a piece of real estate. The average net worth of a renter used to be, it's a couple of years ago, I'm sure it's inflated now, at least on the ownership side, is $2,000. The average net worth of a property owner is in excess of $200,000.
Huge financial
So that's
gap.
a big difference.
Well, yeah, it's a complete different mentality shift from being a renter to a homeowner, right? So naturally, the cycle of real estate and how you go through life, right? Not everybody just wakes up and has enough down payment, 3.5% or 20% to buy, that condo or that townhome.
Right. Or VA is zero.
VA,
really.
you can. We don't advertise, we don't like to say no money down because now it puts your potential, if you have to move out, that monthly payment may not be cheap enough to match monthly rents.
Possibly.
So
You got to talk to a mortgage expert.
Yeah.
Which you
should. Okay, so the pros and cons of an apartment, it's a stepping stone. Please, for all of you viewers thinking about real estate, we understand you can't just have a down payment, VA, zero, but we don't advocate for 0% down. You're setting yourself up for failure. Sometimes that's my stance. You may be different.
I think, okay, so if you're somebody who's in college or you're young military or whatever, and you can buy something, VA obviously, you're young military, you can buy something with zero down, the payment is manageable, but you're going to have lots of roommates, then to me, that's a great way to build equity. You're going to be stationed somewhere for an excess of a year. 2 would be ideal. Then I think that would be a really great option as opposed to renting. Now, renting as opposed to living with mom and dad, in my opinion, if you're a certain age, I think it builds character, a lot of independence. I think, it's one of the best things that you can do. I think that is better. Now, if you want to live with your parents and save up for a nest egg, then that's fine.
Short term. Short term. Come on. Yeah, you don't want to be 25, 30 years old living at home with mom and dad.
Yeah, because then
you got chores. Let's face it, if you're 21 and you're living at home, mom and dad gave you chores. And then you just push that along till you're 30, you still got chores. And if your adult children don't have chores, shame on you, mom and dad. That's a shout out to you guys. Shame on you guys for being enablers. Okay, apartments, rent, you guys know where we stand on that.
Yeah.
Next is condos. So we're going to go in that order. Okay, condos. First, this is what I typically preach to somebody getting into real estate. They don't have the down payment for the single family unless they move 30, 40, 50 minutes outside town. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's more important about the location that fits their lifestyle. Your first property, Old Town Scottsdale, right? Camelback and dude.
Yeah. 1968. little 1,000 square foot 2-bed 2-bath condo with shag carpet.
Yeah, baby.
Gold mirrors. They were mirrors with gold paint specked all over them. Asbestos, legit asbestos ceiling.
Yeah.
I went to scrape it and had to analyze.
Healthy.
Very, very healthy.
Yeah.
But I wish I still had that place.
I do too.
That location was
that's why I bring
so
it up.
great. That was so great, and I sold it. And I was 20 when I bought the place.
Sure.
And if I would have kept it to now, it would have been paid off.
Yeah.
It would have been a cash cow. It would have been worth exponentially more than what I paid for
Yeah,
it.
double, triple.
But the condo, honestly, my own personal preference on condo, it's like you own the drywall in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great as far as simplicity and low maintenance. You don't have a yard to maintain. You don't even have to take care of the roof.
Yeah.
As long as your HOA dues are not too exorbitant,
Right.
I think that condos are the way to go, especially for the first time. For a single person, for a young couple, for whatever it is. And it's funny, you see that the trajectory of life is people usually start with either a condo, a townhouse, or a starter home, and then things will progress. And then they'll end up with a family,
Promotion
with more
kids.
square footage, with whatever, stronger income. They'll buy something bigger, and then later on, towards the end of their life, they'll want to downsize usually,
Sure.
right? Less to maintain, because it's a lot.
Condo
maintaining a
sounds good
property.
then.
It absolutely, the condo sounds good to me all the time, because I'm
To
busy.
do anything, dude.
And I just, yeah, even all you have to take care of really usually is the water heater, unless you have a huge community water heater,
Sure.
which some subdivisions do have, and your AC, unless it has community AC, which is also a rarity as well. But even those, I don't like taking care of.
No.
Those. But it's just so simple, and you just have to kind of keep it clean. It's a good starting point.
So
I think.
point being is that condos for us, and I think, and we mutually agree, it's a great stepping stone. Okay.
Right.
The homeowner association, HOA, for those that don't know, basic Barney style stuff here. They will take care of your master policy insurance. There's typically amenities. So when I'm like, hey man, I think you need to step into a condo, here's what you should look for, right? You don't want my first condo that I bought and it's paid for still in Kierland, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah.
It went from like $150 a month HOA dues where there was a pool, jacuzzi, full gym, theater, pool table, all that stuff to I'm at $268.10.
Still not bad.
Not bad, but by the way, keep it down if you're watching that and you're on the property management team. That's a shout out to you guys. I don't want a 3% increase next year. All right.
Inflation.
Inflation, exactly. COVID, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's still.
But it's got the gate. It's secured. There's
For sure.
cameras.
There's value too.
There is. And I still have it to the point that we made. Keep it. Don't
Right.
sell it.
Right. Yeah,
Don't
totally.
sell it.
Do not. Turn that into a rental.
Boom.
Be a landlord.
Yeah.
So, okay. And the other thing that can offset it too, like you said, the insurance costs.
Yep.
But also, what is it? Does it include water, sewer, trash?
Good point. Exactly. So the pros and cons is HOA is your water included? Is your electricity included? Sometimes in Hawaii, they had free cable, they had water, they had sewer, no trash expense. So all you were paying for was electricity.
Right.
So these are the things that you need to think about, and your agent needs to be a baller and needs to go out, which most agents don't. They suck, and they're like, yeah, there's a great property, let's write the contract, not having any due diligence in representing you. But anyway, another episode, another time. But
someone needs to explain things thoroughly to you so
Yeah.
that you see the value, and they need to weigh in with their opinion
Yeah.
if they think the dues are too high.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I've seen HOAs. Some of them are, I've got a place. It's in the mid 200s per month. That's very manageable.
Yeah.
And you get your water, sewer, trash. It's gated.
Yeah.
But then I've seen other HOAs that are sometimes, $450. You got multiple
Relative.
HOAs stacked on top of each other. It could amount to 500, 600, 700. I've seen HOAs that are in the thousands for some luxury condos. So, you want to factor that into what you can afford monthly. But and then also one other thing I wanted to mention is largely the difference between an apartment and a condo is in the ownership. A lot of apartment buildings, especially mega apartment buildings that are owned by corporations, by hedge funds.
yeah. Private equity, yeah.
Right. And then a condo, you're going to have an individual ownership. There have been a lot of communities, and the condo that I own it used to be an apartment complex, and they did a condo conversion.
Which was individual meters.
Individual meters. Then they sectioned off the ownership and they sold them. They had a developer come in there, revamp it, and they sold them individually.
Yeah.
Like it was a new home build. Like when you're buying a new subdivision, only the structure's already there.
Yep.
So that's the big difference. The structure itself, the building itself is largely the same.
Yeah, exactly. Ownership. So there's pros and cons to that. To the condo, HOA is the big thing. When I was in Hawaii, I think that 2-bedroom, 2-bath, I was paying almost $800 a month, and the building was like 90 years old. But it had a rooftop pool, it had security, it had on-site management when you checked in. Like it was sort of worth it. It was I felt really bad coughing that much money out.
Oh yeah.
And
Hawaii though.
I know
That's
it's why.
the other thing. The
Remember
Hawaii
the rooftop
factor.
pool? The
Oh,
rooftop
of
pool?
course I do.
It was beautiful, overlooking Waikiki and Diamond
It
Head.
was pretty. It was worth it.
It was worth it.
It was worth it.
It was worth it. But just, I think of exit strategy, right? If you're going to rent it, you need to put enough money down to where you're going to cover your monthly payment plus your HOA. Okay. So that's why I'm like, hey, don't put zero money down because it may alter what market rents are, so on and so forth. Podcast another time. But
assessments too. That's another thing to be aware of. Special assessments.
Good point.
I have a friend. We leased out his condo. We tried to sell it. Very difficult. The HOA is almost $800 a month. And the reason is they had to spend $10 million changing out all the drains.
Plumbing. Cast iron drill. Cast
all
iron.
of the drains. So the whole subdivision, which has got to be close to 1,000 units.
Yeah.
And it costs millions of dollars. And they didn't have that reserve sitting in the HOA account, which another thing that I recommend doing, if you do buy a condo, and I did it when I was 20 years old, I'll never forget this. I was a treasurer of my HOA. I think, get involved just for it's a labor of love. I'll say that. But get your experience up so that you're fluid with this. These people are managing your money and they have stake in your vested interest, your equity, and your condominium. I think volunteer, get involved. If you have the time, and do it.
I was part of buildings and grounds on that apartment complex at that condo in
nice.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I got a free education. It cost me time.
Sure.
But I was like, you know what? It's 190 units. And I was sick. I was complaining about the HOA increase. So for all y'all, this is my takeaway. You're not entitled to complain unless you're willing to do something about it. Period. Yep. So get on your board of directors.
Right.
And it's an education. Now you're vested. Sure. Now you have a decision.
You know the way that works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, great points. The assessment. When you're buying a condo, make sure that if it's an older property, ask your agent or the HOA, whoever's property management, when was the last time the plumbing was redone? It's worth a question.
The roof, the paint.
Bingo.
The roads.
Exactly.
The gates.
Yep.
The pools.
These are things you ask your agent to ask the HOA.
Don't go into it blind.
No,
because it does affect you.
For sure. And then it costs you money.
It can inhibit your ability to resell also.
For sure.
The HOA goes up exponentially. Not everybody can swing that. They don't see the value. And if you got 8 years left on the assessment, may be holding on to that place for a while. You may be treading water with the rentability of it, or you may be losing money every month. You just need to speak with an expert and really do your due diligence completely.
For sure. Next property, townhomes.
Yep.
Okay. You're stepping up from the condo environment. They may be side by side, a mutual wall, but it's not like single family detached homes. Similar concept, HOA, probably a community pool.
Right.
Maybe
sometimes
a gym.
garages.
Sometimes. Yeah.
And the ownership changes. It's from the ground up. So it's not like a condo. If you have a multi-story building, you've got kind of from the drywall in as the ownership. From the townhouse, it's different. So you may be responsible for your own roof. Yep. In some instances, it varies from community to community depending on the HOA's responsibility. But, a townhouse is typically a step up.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar.
Little yard.
You might have a very small yard. It might be 2 stories. You might have a garage.
Yeah.
I like townhouses. Again, condo to townhouse to me, I think that's ideal because you're still limited on your responsibility.
Sure.
It's more turnkey.
Sure.
If it's not a primary residence.
So pros and cons is kind of what we were talking here. That the townhouse and the HOA for these types of properties, there's CC&Rs, covenants. What's it called?
Conditions, restrictions.
Basically, it's not necessarily a bad thing always, right? You don't want to have a junkyard. These people with hoarders, right? That have boats, RVs, used cars, and they just put them in their front lawn. Like an HOA is there to keep unity amongst the units. Okay. Townhome, you're going to have to deal with their CC&Rs in terms of, can I paint this townhome? You feel as though it's mine. I can do whatever I want. But that's the big difference between a single family non-HOA and these communities that have governance.
Yeah,
right?
a condo and a townhouse, you're definitely going to have HOAs. You're definitely going to have some governing, and even in most, a lot of single family homes, it depends on where you're at, but we'll
Yeah.
get into that when it comes to the single family homes.
Yeah.
But you definitely, you have some governance there as to what you can do. But a townhouse generally too is going to be pretty low maintenance. It's not from the drywall in, but they're going to be usually a cluster of buildings.
Yeah.
The ownership. So they'll usually take care of like painting the whole clusters and things like that. Maintaining the grounds.
My philosophy is once you get your condo going, you get some roommates if you're young and single, and then work your way up to that single family home. Try and get away from the HOA. I think during your time, whether it's a condo or a townhome, you've had that governance. You understand what you're paying for, and now you should have kind of a solid foundation on what's it going to take for me to take care of my own property. It's not the same as actually being dropped in and now you own it and now you got to do lawn maintenance and landscaping and roof and all that other stuff. But I like the jump from a condo single family because I want my money to be maximized and efficient. Okay, during this process of stepping stones in the real estate, process, you need to go out on a limb and put that HOA money into a larger investment. Keep the condo, rent it out.
Sure, right.
But then the single family is where I think the American dream is, right? It's yours. You may or may not have an HOA, and if you do, it's minimal. It's not going to be as invasive or as expensive as a condo.
Usually,
right?
Right, yep. Because they're responsible for less.
Right, exactly.
You're responsible for your roof, for your grounds usually. Sometimes they'll take care of the front landscaping.
Yeah.
But there's just more real estate. Your
Right.
lot's bigger. It's a standalone structure. Statistically, though, what you're talking about with the value, the real estate market is generally measured by the rebound or the deterioration of the value of a single family home. That's the gold standard. It's not just condos.
What do you mean?
What I mean is when experts are doing statistics nationwide or even here locally, the measuring stick is a single family home. It's usually not a condo, townhouses, or anything like that. The single family home is usually the one that's going to be the last to fall when the market's correcting itself and the first to rebound. So even though it's more maintenance, it's definitely going to cost more than a condo or a townhouse in most instances. That's really where the main value is. That's a measuring stick for the real estate market.
So when they do a market analysis, and the CPI, when you're doing your mortgage index, it's all hedged upon the foundation of single family homes. So they don't take into consideration all the outliers.
Right.
Commercial real estate, vice condos and apartments. I think they take in the rental factor, like market rents on the apartment.
They do in townhouses and things like that. But those statistically too are the first to take a hit. Your condos and your townhouses are going to take a hit. If the market's contracting and correcting itself, the condos are going to take a hit first, statistically.
Got it. Okay.
Followed by single-family homes.
That's a good piece.
And then the single-family home's going to rebound before the condos and townhouses do.
Got it.
I think a lot of that has to do with the HOA potentially.
Sure.
But it's also, I think it's the ideal ownership. If you can stomach it, what most people do to get to a certain point in their life and they buy a single family home, I'm not deterring anybody from buying one of those. Just realize it's more responsibility.
Sure.
Whenever I sell a home to somebody, I tell them you might want to set some money aside because there are these things that are your responsibility.
Right.
It's going to get you out of the house, taking care of your yard, observing things and fixing them. You can hire it out too.
Sure.
But I think sometimes it's great, going and working on these things. It's a vested interest in the maintaining of this property that you own.
Right. So pros and cons of single family. One, it's yours. Hopefully you don't have an HOA and you kind of stepped it up. But anytime I buy a property, now that you may not agree with me, I want to get the seller, or somehow if I got to pay for it, that's fine. I'd love for the seller to pay for it. But a home warranty for 1 year. Because now I'm living in a property. I haven't spent a lot of time there. I don't know the leaks, the cracks, the things of that. Every home's different. It's got a personality. And you don't know what's broken, what's been hidden, what they didn't disclose, you know what I'm saying? So I think a home warranty, a good one, is a good, avenue for your purchase and to be linked for the first year. So an AC goes out, they didn't know about the AC, right? There's so many scenarios, right? And it could be ironic, But a home warranty is a good stepping stone for somebody that's made the jump from a condo to single family. Try and advocate to get a home warranty. What are they? $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, they're very affordable, and you're kind of hedging against something catastrophic happening. It'll help subsidize if you need to get a new roof, if you need to get a new AC unit.
Sure.
Something major happens, you're going to have a deductible.
Yep.
But usually these companies are going to eat the brunt of whatever that cost is.
Sure.
And then also, though, this is very important. Before you buy the single-family home, you want to inspect any and all facets of it that you can, because those home warranty companies are going to ask you for that inspection.
Yeah.
So you want to verify that it wasn't a pre-existing condition. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that the place has been thoroughly inspected first. Throw the home warranty on there, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, if you're not super experienced with all these things. It's just kind of like an insurance policy.
Sure.
And you buy it on an annual basis.
Yeah. I've had some good ones. I've had some bad ones. Oh, that would be a great sponsor spot for home warranty. Oh, ding, ding, ding. Sponsors. Right. We're looking for them, by the way. Mm-hmm. I had one, and I won't disclose the company just yet, but I had a pool on one of the single family in Kierland. And I was in the military, by the way. Shout out to you guys. When you're on deployment, mama's not going to be able to be as savvy as you are when you're taking care of this stuff. I said, hey, I want everything, and I have a pool. So what did I do? I verbalized it. They put together the policy. I didn't read it. Shame on me. It was like 2 or 6 pages. Mm-hmm. And then the pump went out. So I was like, hey, I told you when we talked about it, lady. And she's like, well, it's not in the policy. I know we talked about it. And I was like, everything in writing, by the way, put it on an email, even if it wasn't in the policy. You got it in writing. That was a story for another time. We can talk about podcasts, pros and cons of insurance and homeowner warranties at a later episode. But the inspection, there was one. Do you remember Alexandria? I had this solid guy. He goes, yeah, it came recommended. The water pressure was at 180 PSI. Ooh. Now you have a water exchange regulator that takes city water into your house and then depressurizes it, meaning it's more user friendly and doesn't blow your pipes for the toilet. So when I was doing a remodel, I was changing out all the fixtures and everything was leaking. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I checked the PSI, it was 180. And the city requires it to be between like 65 and 80. Don't quote me, but that's roughly what it is.
Right.
And the inspector missed it. And I'm like,
wow,
dude, this is your job.
Ooh,
and then he missed
That's pretty standard.
Dude, it was so crazy. And then a sinkhole outside near the stairs. I had to put 27 bags of concrete underneath the staircase. I'm like,
he missed that too.
Yeah.
I mean, inspectors are people. They're not, they're going to make mistakes. Hopefully you want to
build a relationship.
You want to have a good agent that's experienced and that has different references that are credible and have a good track record.
Yeah.
So that you don't miss sinkholes and water pressure being 100 PSI
over
what it's supposed to be, because that's dangerous.
Yeah.
You wash your hands, you're going to come out with the phalanges exposed.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
So pros to condos, that type of stuff is typically regulated and monitored and in your cost of a homeowner association. As a single family, it's on you, okay? Landscaping and all that stuff. So
yeah, you can hire it out. I mean, you can hire anything out. It just kind of depends on your threshold for paying, how busy you are, what your financial situation looks like.
Yeah.
And not all single family. If you buy a house, you get it inspected, or you get a new roof, and you get some of these a new water heater, a new AC unit, and let's say you only live there part time, it's probably going to be relatively low maintenance.
Sure.
So I don't want to deter anyone from buying a single family home. There's tremendous value in it. And it's also kind of good. It's kind of nice, character building, therapeutic to get out and take care of some of this stuff, inspect it, grow a garden. There's so many things you can do with a single family home that you can't do with a townhouse.
It's funny,
and in between, though, we got a patio home, which I do own a patio home also. I turned it into a rental. It used to be the primary residence. So I've got a small patio. It's on the golf course. So it's a transition between the townhouse and the single family home.
Yes.
Had to buy a new roof, $21,000, the least rewarding way to spend money, right? No one ever tells you to come over and take a look at my new roof I bought. But
or windows, right?
Yeah, windows are not fun. But, you know, it's another kind of stepping stone, like a half step between a townhouse and a single family home.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan. I really like patio homes too, because it's not the full transition to a single family home.
Yep.
I got a landscaper, does the front and the back of it. The thing's super low maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to buy these wearable parts. You got to get a new roof, an AC unit, water heater, things like that every once in a while. But I really am a big fan of patio homes personally. If I could have my way, that would be like my number one type of real estate that I would own anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a good view.
Oh,
I think it's awesome.
For sure. You don't have to deal with the maintenance of being single family.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Next, ranch style. Okay. I'm thinking outside the city limits. You're in county land. Okay. You got some land, right? You're talking acreage. You're not getting these quarter acre, half acre in the city limits. I'm talking, an acre plus, right?
Right.
Pros are nobody recognizes what the city does for you until you have to do it for yourself. Trash, right? If we live in Scottsdale, Arizona,
right,
you pay for city utilities, water and trash, right? Out in the county, you have to haul your own trash or burn it, right? Not burn it. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, some people do.
Where you're located in the country, for sure. Yeah.
So these are the things that people don't think about when they move outside city limits. It's cheaper, but you have a drive into work. Maybe it works for you if you're a stay-at-home, entrepreneur, et cetera, et cetera. But these are the things that nobody talks about. Okay. In Rio Verde, they don't have city water. They have to haul their water in. Down,
or they have a well.
And
there's no guarantee in a well. You can dig super deep. You got to have the water tested, arsenic levels, various different things like that. But the plus side is, I mean, you're kind of like the own king of your castle out there.
Yeah, man.
You get some land. It's really nice.
I love it.
It's less dense. I joke around about there's a scene in the movie Avengers: Age of Ultron where Hawkeye has his own farm out, and it's in Iowa. I looked it up. It's in Waverly, Iowa. And that to me looks like paradise.
Really?
Like acreage, green land. But you got to kind of fend for yourself with a lot of these things, right?
Sure.
So there need to be some Wikipedia pages visited on how to educate yourself on maintaining that, because you don't have all these other boundaries in here to kind of keep you on track.
For sure. And on all the, safety, security, hospitals, right?
Yeah.
All these utilities and conveniences are typically where all the people live inside city limits. But, a garden. I mean, I got a garden. Totally. I'm inside city limits, but I got some romaine lettuce, by the way, we planted. You planted those.
Delicious.
Really.
I mean, it's organic and it's really free.
Yeah.
Aside from your time, but it's amazing. Not comparable with what you buy usually, unless you're paying an absolute fortune.
Right.
At AJ's or Costco or wherever you buy your groceries.
So when you got this ranch style, I mean, typically people are more self-sufficient. They got the land. They got their chickens. They got livestock. They got,
which you can't have in the city limits, the chickens and things like that.
You got to do so much paperwork and all. It's crazy. Right. Yeah. So think about it for your kids. I know we're both young parents. We got kids between 1 and 3, and that's kind of the American dream for me. That was a big thing for me. Was how are my kids going to mature and see what life is really about inside a condo or a townhome, right? There are some people that financially can't make that jump just yet, right? All right. But the end goal for me was I want my kids to be outside. I don't want them to be socially awkward and to sit in front of the television all day long playing Nintendos. We see these people for the last 15, 20 years, Nintendo, and I mean, it's made
can't
people
make eye contact.
Weird.
It is. And they've done different various psychological studies in kids, and they found that country living actually produces the happiest childhoods and adolescence. And I think there's major value in that. And it's not even necessarily more money. You can look throughout the United States and you can probably find a large homestead or property that has acreage, and it'd be the same cost, if not cheaper, than a lot of these metro areas that have condos and townhouses that are a fortune.
And the people that think that it's more expensive, it's because you're not educated. And that's why we come into play. We're telling you these places exist. When we were looking at Alexandria in Virginia, 40 minutes outside, you could buy 5 acres for X amount of dollars, which was cheaper than the house that I bought downtown Alexandria on George Washington's spot. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, how long are we going to be here? Are we actually going to plant our roots here? The answer was no.
Right.
But for you guys thinking about, hey, my home is Arizona or wherever you live, think about looking outside the city limits. Pros and cons. But you get some land for your kids. They get them bicycles. There's no weirdos out there. Well, debatable, maybe.
Yeah, you can target practice on your land, though, for some of those if you ever come across them.
That's right.
But no, what I will say, though, on the other side of that coin, though, that would be a pro. Like my wife and I went to New York City last year, and we really had a great time.
Yeah.
And we saw people that were there that had dogs and had kids, and they're pushing them in strollers. And I mean, if you can, I feel like life is short.
Yeah.
If you could almost get both experiences, depending on what your employment looks like, if you're in the military, if you could spend some time maybe living in a dense city and with cheap rent, or buy a condo and kind of capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And then also get the other spectrum of things with life, with land somewhere else in a less populated area. I think that would be really great because, not everybody may have the same standards that you and I aspire to, and different things make them happy.
Sure.
I mean, I told my wife, I said, if I got to do it all over again, maybe I would have spent some time in New York City, maybe a couple of years. I think it would have been so great. I think it would have been a lot of fun, all the different places to go and to eat.
Yeah.
And then if you have land and acreage, though, you're kind of your own kitchen. You're your own grocery store.
And safety.
Oh, yeah. You're going to call the cops and wait for 3 hours?
Yeah, you're going to break your arm and then take a 45-minute, 1-hour drive to the hospital. These are the things that you should be thinking about considering, but don't live in a bubble. There's going to be pros and cons to all of these different types of real estate. But like for me and my family, I throw the banana peels out. I use the strawberries, and we got our compost pile. And my daughter, she understood what it took to grow her flowers. So we went to the compost pile, and we took the soil, and it was a teaching moment, right? And now she gets to water the flowers, and she gets to see what she grew and what was left over. So it's not like, hey, we're eating this and we're just throwing it out. It's like there's a purpose. It's an education.
Right.
So it was very powerful for me.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah, man.
There's so much tremendous value in that. It's kind of funny. We live in a society where people can sometimes barely even operate a microwave, I feel like. The stories that I've observed in my real estate career, there have been properties that I've walked into and only one bulb works in the whole entire 3-story townhouse. And the reason is they didn't want to bother the landlord, and they didn't know what to do.
Just go by what type of light bulbs.
And let's see, you have 4 sconces hanging in the kitchen. Only one of them works. So they had enough light to get by when it was dark.
Was that a renter
It was a renter that did that. So, there's major life lessons in owning property. And just really the best way to learn is to do it.
Yes.
I think. And then you got YouTube or whatever. Just look up stuff and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
There are people that are not as smart as you listening to this podcast, and they do it for a career.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about the experience, right? I mean, I fully believe that everybody that's out there and that hears this, you can do everything yourself with enough experience, enough time and dedication.
100%.
And if you can't do it, have somebody teach you or watch videos. We're all capable of doing this.
Yeah, man.
It's not difficult.
100%. And I completely support that. That is absolutely accurate. It's just we become lazy.
Totally.
We put our heads down and we're just going through the grind. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Oh, man, the weekend wasn't long enough. It's like, dude, this real estate, and the reason why we do these podcasts is because there's value in real estate. Not only does everybody need a place to live, but like, our condos and properties that we bought 10, 15 years ago, they are not the same price today as they were 10, 15 years ago. No. There's value there. And
you're paying it off.
Yes.
Each of those payments goes towards building equity.
We're not the smartest guys in the world.
No, not at all. A lot of it's behavior.
Yes.
A lot of it's behavior.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not that someone's smarter than you or less intelligent than you.
It didn't take, 1 week. It took 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it takes a long time for sure
to get here.
Right.
Yeah, just fantastic information here. But let's talk on, we're not going to dive into commercial real estate too much because that's going to be another podcast for another time. We got a guest speaker coming soon, Jim Castellanos. It's going to be awesome, by the way. That's a little tag in there. But multifamily. So not car washes or strip centers and all that stuff inside of commercial. I'm talking multifamily. So we talk, in the military, everybody's like, I want to get into real estate, but I want to buy a 4-plex. Great. Your funding changes anytime you go over a fourplex to a fiveplex, plus your funding. You can live in one and rent out the other three, and they can take part of that as your income, so your debt to income ratio, et cetera, et cetera. But I think once you've mastered all these individual, and correct me if I'm wrong, these individual properties, you'd stepping stone from apartment to condo, condo to townhome or single family. And if it's your thing, go to a ranch house or stay in the single family, but ultimately an investment. So it's not just a stock market to place your money, but everybody needs a place to live, and you dive into that fourplex, eightplex, 10plex multifamily. Now you're a landlord. Now it turns into a business, right? But that's where the wealth is, right? So you can build it, you can buy it. The con is there is certain zoning restrictions for these multifamily properties, and certain cities will only allow them in certain areas, but there is huge wealth there. What's your take on multifamily in general? I mean, would you advocate for somebody starting out in real estate to buy one right off the bat, or get comfortable in managing all those other properties first?
So I think it's kind of funny. I've had so many people that don't own real estate approach me, and they say, well, I want to buy a fourplex. I want to buy it. That always seems to be, in their mind, the jumping off point.
Yeah.
That's where they want to start, which isn't necessarily the wrong thing. Here locally in Arizona, they're not as abundant as they are in other parts of the country. So that's going to affect my opinion on it. One thing that I would think of that jumps out to me is just be aware of the dynamic. Your neighbors, the people that you're leasing out to, those are going to be your neighbors, and you're their landlord.
Yeah.
So that might be an interesting dynamic to look into if you're living in one of them. But I totally agree. It could be a massive wealth, passive income.
Yes.
From even a duplex, right? It's going to be offsetting your costs of what your mortgage are. But that's what a lot of people do who have mega bucks.
Yeah.
That's what they aspire to do, because you always need housing.
Bingo.
A lot of these people, they end up buying these huge apartment buildings, and they buy it together with other families, corporations. That's where a lot of them park their funds.
Yeah.
So I look at that as being something maybe looking at towards retirement rather than just jumping right into it, because it requires a lot of capital.
And you're stuck in that property, right? You're stuck in that property because it does require a huge down payment.
It does. Yeah, you are. But you know what? If you play it right, because there's some landlords that are kind of less vested, or maybe they're burned out, or maybe they just don't know.
Yeah.
And if you buy some of these kind of older, dilapidated multifamilies, and you spend a minimal amount of money improving that, then it could increase your basis value, and you could sell it a year later. You could do 1031 exchange into something else. So I think there's major value in that. But again, you got to talk to an expert and really know as much information about what you're getting yourself into, and then always be looking at an exit plan.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's in a year or if it's in 40 years.
Yeah.
But be looking at an exit plan.
Dude, you bring up such a good point. I hear it all the time. Hey, I want to buy a multifamily. Where do you think is the best location? They don't know the philosophy behind and the reality of, if they are going to buy a fourplex or a duplex, you got a shared wall. All right.
Oh yeah.
And you want to obviously get that unit rented, but not all the time do you get to choose who's going to be your renter. Right?
Yeah. It's your neighbor too.
For a 6 month, a year-long lease, you're married. You guys are right there. Married. So, it's not as easy as you guys may
just jumping in and thinking, I'm just going to do this, and that's the right decision. It's not always the best decision. It could be, depending where you're located.
Right.
But I like to have all my options in front of me, and I like to weigh everything out before I decide which course to take.
Right. We didn't talk too much about property management as the landlord side. You get burnt out, and you can have it say, hey, you do the property management because I don't want to deal with the tenants.
Sure.
But as somebody starting out in real estate, that's just another expense. Yes, you can write it off, but it's pulling away from your profits, and additionally, your opportunity cost to buy another spot, right? So every dollar that you spent that's not going into paying down your principal is another missed opportunity of that dollar creating interest in whatever account going to the next property.
Right.
And that's how we're building wealth.
Right. No, right? I manage all my own properties, and I run around, and I've learned how to take care of things a lot.
Yeah.
By doing that. But there comes a point in time where I'm just not going to want to do it at all anymore.
Yeah, man.
And so my advice, if you have the stomach for it and the time, then just do it yourself. Because, you could be paying sometimes, some of these property managers are 10, 12% of your monthly rent.
15%.
Oh, yeah. With our very special friends, they do that to us. But yeah, that can add up. That is a monthly bill. And the way I think about it is, what if your rent is $2,000, a month? That's $300 that you're paying out to somebody. Would you not
Your
for
mortgage.
$300?
Yeah.
Would you go and would you not take care of it
Hell
yourself?
yeah. Hey,
that's how I quantify things.
Right. Hey, the dishwasher's broken. Go buy a new one. Hey, the garbage disposal's busted. Buy a new one. That's been my mentality for so many years. That wasn't my mentality for so many years. It was put a Band-Aid on it. Well, let's just go out there and tinker with it and try and jimmy the things, pull it out, clean it. Ultimately, I got to the point where it's just like, replace it. There's an issue with the hot water heater and I don't have a home warranty. Replace it.
If it's a simple fix, then
Sure.
then fix it. But otherwise, if it's old and it's time, that's kind of the way that I think about things right now.
Yeah, dude.
I just went with a tenant and we put a new washing machine in the condo. And it was time. When I bought the place, 8 years ago, it came with the unit.
Sure.
I don't know how old it is. It was $500-$600 to get a new one in there. I can write it off on my taxes. They're happy.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be a cheapo landlord, in my opinion.
You're showing them value and appreciation.
Totally.
And think about it. When you put in or jimmy rig or do whatever, that tenant's looking at you like, you must not value me because you didn't get me a good piece of gear. Now, just hit me here. We're going to do another podcast on tenants. It's landlord-esque and the stories, because I got some stories, man. I know you do too. That crush my soul, man. In multifamily.
You got to vet your tenants the right way.
Oh, yes, you do.
Make sure they can afford it.
I still got the shakes and the poops from that one.
Oh,
yeah. We'll talk about it on another podcast. But so we touched on the stepping stones of the American dream here on, an apartment, a condo, a townhome, a single family, and maybe if that's in your blood, that ranch style, kind of far out of city limits, get some peace of mind, but you're going to be so much more reliant on yourself and your own skills. But to your point, there is nothing given enough time that you can't do, period. There's so many resources. These cell phones, we're in the greatest time in the history of humanity to learn and have the access.
Age.
Yeah. Right? Like, you can do this, man. You can get after it. Giddy up. Okay.
Yep.
When we talked about the multifamily too, which is a little bit more advanced, and I think we're going to talk about that in the next podcast with Jim Castellanos, because just be fantastic. But long story short, you've heard us talk about pros, cons of all these different types of real estate, and everybody's got their own dreams, whether it's career driven, real estate driven, or stocks and other investments. It doesn't matter. All we're trying to do is provide you a glimpse of the real estate aspect, because everybody needs a place to live. Yeah. And not everybody has the means right now, but it's about the savings plan. And we can also talk about your budget on a one-on-one 30-minute call with us to get you into whatever stepping stone property that you so choose. And that's really what it's about. We believe in the American dream. If we didn't believe in real estate, we wouldn't be doing a podcast talking about it.
Absolutely. I think everybody watching this, if you don't already own, you should seriously not delay.
Yes.
And look into doing that.
Yeah.
Look into buying something. Because you're leaving money on the table. If you sit and pay you're paying someone else's mortgage if you're renting. Yes.
I used to be as diplomatic about my descriptions for being a renter, and I get it. Some people have no choice. Got it. But you sleep there, you eat there, you cook, you park your car, you do whatever other things you do as a renter. Right. Okay. And when I come up against this barrier with some of these people, they go, well, the interest rates are too high. Well, I've been talking to one of my good buddies, pilot bud. And he's like, well, the prices are too high. And that was 15 years ago. And there was a great quote. I don't have it memorized. I said, dude, in the last 15 years, prices have tripled. He goes, well, now the interest rate is too high.
He's never going to buy.
No.
I mean, I showed him a place 10 years ago almost, and he shot it down because it wasn't, the soup was too cold, the soup was too hot. And realistically, compared to that, because I remember where the value was.
Oh, yeah.
I would say he's left $300,000 to $400,000 on the table.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Easy.
Now, that's just in equity, let alone the amount that he would have paid down on that property.
Take into consideration his rent that he's paid.
Completely.
$3,000 a month.
So it's a mistake.
Yes.
It's a mistake. Short answer.
Yeah, and get away from just the interest rates. You may listen, Jim Castellanos and everybody will all agree. If you have enough time, you will never lose in real estate. You have enough time. Okay, given interest rates, market, whatever,
totally,
you're going to be set. Okay,
and don't buy. With some of these things, I would say have in mind you're not buying to dump in a year or 2 years or in a month. I would say look at this, especially if it's something that you're going to live in, that you may keep and add to your portfolio forever. We live in the United States. Take advantage of real estate. It's a big wealth building vehicle.
Yeah,
and it's a way for you to have a vested interest in tangible asset.
Yeah. You can tell we love this topic. We've been in it our entire life. Antonio's been a broker for years and just an incredible wealth of knowledge. I've been in the military for many years, and I would buy and renovate and buy another investment property at every duty station, and I've created some wealth doing it.
Right.
Taking advantage of living in primary residence for 2 years. That's another topic for another day. Or you can talk to us one-on-one, 30 minutes at reallifeschool.com. We love this stuff. And we're preaching to you guys the significance behind it. Everybody's situation is different, right? And we're able to sit back, analyze your situation, do a market analysis pretty quickly, surface level, 30,000 foot top down, and kind of get you on the right track. All right. So Antonio Guerrero, mentor at Real Life School, Tyler Pensick, mentor at Real Life School. Our calendars are available, and we are here to help you guys live that American dream. Everybody goes, oh, the American dream's dead, or it let me down. That's crap, okay? That's crap. You still sleep underneath a roof somewhere tonight. Now let's get you a place of your own. We look forward to seeing you guys at Real Life School. Book a one-on-one with one of us, and let's get you some property. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.